Hello and welcome to Crystal Core Radio. My name is Brian and joining me is my co-host Chris. And today we're happy to welcome back Meoni to the podcast. We've got a epic show for you guys today. We're going to be talking about obviously what the community is talking about right now, and that's the drama or the epic of RICHCOB. But outside of that piece of content, I think we're going to just hit that hard and fast first. But then I want to spend some time talking about Endwalker, kind of final predictions. This time, the 17th of September is the live letter for Endwalker. This is where we really start to dive in deep. And then they also have a media tour planned with information coming out at some point in the future. So if we get information that we can share, we'll share it. But in the meantime, we can't talk about that right now, but we're going to talk about what we're looking forward to, obviously, for the live letter, what we're excited about with Endwalker, and what we're doing between now and the release of Endwalker with Meoni. Meoni, you are a legend. Why don't you take some time to introduce yourself to those who have yet heard of you and why they should follow you?
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction and for being here, first of all. But yeah, if you don't know who I am, I've done YouTube for a couple of years now, doing Final Fantasy stuff predominantly. That's what I'm most known for. And I cover lots of news and coverage of news articles and everything new to the game. A few guides here and there, teach people how to get through some of the content, bits and pieces here and there, and more like glamour side of things as well, and fashion report, that sort of stuff. So I don't know if you like that kind of stuff, then I'd say the more casual side of things, then feel free to come on by. Is that what I'm supposed to say?
You can say whatever you want. You can be like, and please unsubscribe from work to game. No. I permit it. Now,
subscribe from work to game.
I don't know. Who knows? At the end of the day, guys, Meoni has just been, I think, a gift to the community. I love his coffee chats. I love the fact that he now has internet to stream. Honestly, I think he puts out an incredible gift to the community itself, and we're really lucky to have him. And we're going to talk about everything. We've got so much that we haven't sat down in a real live conversation because we've just all been so busy. So that's what this podcast is going to be focusing in on. Before we dive into the content, though, I do have to say thank you to all the support that makes the shows like this possible. In fact, brand new member, Cordell, hitting that YouTube Podcast Legends membership. But Vern and WG Productions and Keelan are our podcast legends. They help kind of keep the funding coming in to cover the cost of the show, the hosting, and more. So we thank you guys for that. So yeah, that's going to be who we thank. Also, thanks to Luke for his generous donation, sponsoring a year's worth of podcasts that we produce, allowing you to have the podcast day and date on MP3 form. So as soon as the show is done, you can go listen to wherever podcasts are found. Just search Crystal Core Radio, and let's go from there. I want to cut over to Chris real quick. We've been kind of chatting with Meoni for a second, but Chris, dude, what is going on with you, man? We just sat down and filmed an epic about the RICHCOB situation. Do you want to kind of give a summary to those who might not know what's going on?
Yeah. So, anybody that has been away for a while or hasn't been paying attention is wondering why they have to wait to log in. There's been a lot of new faces coming to Final Fantasy XIV, and that has been true both on, this side of a camera and on the other side. And so naturally, some bigger personalities have made their way over, especially with World of Warcraft being in a rough spot. So Rich Campbell, shoutcaster, World of Warcraft creator, friend of Asmon, and much more, professional driver of the Cambulance, has come over and makes for exciting and very energetic content. Maybe you like his style of humor, maybe you don't, but he draws big audiences, and he has reached out to some content creators. I believe he reached out to, Llama Todd, and Llama Todd put together a stacked group of players, most of which had cleared Ultimate, and they said when to go. And so he hadn't even gotten to his Savage yet. And they dragged him into Ultimate and progged that over like a 4-day of just epic, big, long streams, tons of support, tons of people having a blast watching. And he legitimately learned the mechanics. He legitimately learned the fight. He was staying after raid times to get, learn about his job. He got a direct lesson on camera from Mr. Happy, which was really neat to watch. Kind of a classroom setting where he was teaching and he was getting to ask questions. That's not something that a guide format typically can represent both sides like that. He was staying up late and watching guides after stream. And so he put in the work and he got it clear, but he did it with a stacked group. And so he wasn't having to deal with other people in the group, maybe not learning as fast as him or making more mistakes than somebody who's at least cleared the content once typically would. And so now that he's gotten his clear, there is a portion of the community that believes that clear should have an asterisk next to it or should not have been allowed to have happened, or frustrated that it should not count. And there are other people that say it absolutely should. And so, that's the drama around the situation. I talked about it at length over on Gaming Kinda. Brian talked about it at an appropriate amount on Ginger Prime, and then we put together a middle distance over on Work to Game. So we have talked this thing to death. We've probably spent enough time talking about events like this that we could have cleared our own Ultimate. So maybe we should just get in and do the work. I stepped my first foot into Ultimate this week, unintentionally and unprepared. And so we didn't even make it past Twintanya. So I can tell you, and I was with Ren and Todd. And so I was with talented players. That does not stop you from dropping a twister on the party and launching them into the wall.
So I called it coffee chat, and actually it's more tea time with Meoni. So I apologize for my American ignorance in that regards, Meoni.
We can have coffee and tea. It's fine.
You told me that literally at a collab, and the comments were like, "What? You who?" And I was like, "Apparently it's a thing. It's apparently a thing." So
the two together is a toffee. So it's all good.
It's all good. What's the take, obviously, on the latest community drama? I've got my own thoughts, but Chris and I've already shared. But I'd be very curious from your perspective. Like, obviously, we've seen a huge upswelling within 14, and then we have this long gap until Endwalker. Like, what is your read on both UCOB, but also Asmon and Rich Campbell and the WoW community basically migrating over?
Well, okay. Well, the first thing I want to talk about is the RICHCOB thing, because I think that it's kind of sad that people were like, it's impossible to do. Oh, you can't pug this. You can't get carried through this content. And then Rich goes and he clears this content, as you say, with a stacked group of people who know what they're doing. But then they're like, oh, you were carried afterwards. It's like they need to make up their decision of if this is you can't boost someone or you can boost someone. I think that the people who are complaining for the most part are so full of salt. It's unbelievable. That's my take on it. I read all of these people slamming Rich, and I'm just like, really? Why? You could do the same thing. You could actually join a group with people who have done this before. As I think Rin themselves have posted out, they do tons of party finder groups. The majority of the clears that they've got through UCOB haven't been specifically with a set group. Those have been through party finder groups, helping people who are on their last few bits of progression on there. You can't just immediately expect to drop into content and clear it. But as you've said, Chris, Rich was watching guides. He was reading things. The dude went into full focus mode on the streams. I watched as much as I physically could around my time schedule as well. And I was like, wow, he really is going man mode on this. He's focusing harder than probably I would if I was streaming, props to the guy. And I don't think people should take that away from him or anyone else. But one of the things I have seen that's a positive out of all of this drama is that it's created this hubbub of people going, you know what? If he can do it, I can do it. And now we've got party finder groups going, right, we're going to try and progress on this. And at least on the EU side, on Chaos, where I play, we have like 30 odd groups for UCOB. Like at peak time, all progression on different stages, and people can list their progression. I've not seen that, because normally people are like, yeah, you're never going to do that, Meoni. You're not skilled enough. Okay, right. I hear people put other people down all the time, including myself from my own experience. But I'm like, well, yeah, but how much harder can it really be? Or are people trying to keep this exclusivity? And I've encountered this elitism a couple of times in this community before. First of all, I did a video a long time ago on how to unsynchronize Omega, so the last AlphaScape, and how to cheese a certain mechanic. They called it Goodbye World, or the Meoni strat. It's used in
Party you got Finder. It named after you?
Yeah, it's used there.
That's Todd's dream.
That's Llama Todd's dream to get it.
Right?
He wants a Todd
strat. So much hate mail from people saying that I've ruined the prestige of that mount now because I've allowed more people an easier way to get a mount. And I don't know if I can swear on this program, but screw those
go ahead.
people.
Yeah. We're on gaming radio right now.
It.
We can
So
have a little bit of adult language.
I've experienced this side of our community before, and this does not surprise me that people were full of salt that day. But
you're usually given a pass because you have a nice voice. We've seen trash posts be like,
yes.
well, you know, I don't really like what Meoni says either, but he has a good voice. Like usually you're given a little bit of softness. You know, usually there's at least a glove on that hand before it hits you.
A glove on the hand, yeah. Some flowers, maybe. Yeah. A scented slap around.
A little bit, yeah. A little
scented slap.
That's how it is.
A slap and a biscuit
with his gloves, and he takes them off and starts slapping someone. Yeah, that's what I'm imagining right now. But yeah, I think it's all overhyped bullshit at the end of the day. Like I can't believe that people are so angry about it, but it's still a really difficult encounter. You know, Rich can't just stand there throughout the entirety of the fight. It's not possible. You know, he has to keep moving. He has to put things in the right place. He has to be in the right place at the right time. It's so unforgiving. And anyone who thinks that you can carry somebody, well, they'd have to be extremely skilled already. And I think he overcame that by becoming skilled through repetition and learning. And it proves, what was it, 4 days? Was it 4 days to clear?
To make them more mad, he's been playing Summoner and learning Summoner. And he boosted Machinist to do this. And so he did it on a boosted job. And so he started out not knowing how to play his job and learned it like almost immediately prior to, like learned it not long at all before Ultimate, and then went into Ultimate. And then like after the first day of Ultimate had to stay with, I think it was after the first day of Ultimate, stayed with Mr. Happy and said like, this is my understanding of how this works. But like, obviously I'm doing it he's level synced down. So like anything he did learn is up at level 80. He's like, okay, so how does this work? And so like Mr. Happy teaching him. So like, just to further insult people that are like, you can't learn to play a job if you boost and all that, like across the board, it does feel a little like Rich was trying to troll them. But if you know Rich, if you hung out with Rich at all, he will go tweet something out and like live on air will go through a couple tweets in his head to try to make it into the most inflammatory version of what it can be. So like he's poking this bear. Like, and if you don't like that, don't watch Rich. Like his goal is to poke the bear.
Absolutely. I don't know. It's bizarre, isn't it? It really is how people can respond that way. But I don't know what they're going to be like when Asmongold inevitably is in a similar or same group.
Well, what was interesting when we did the community feedback episode on Work to Game, somebody said that Xeno said that people are going to love that Asmon and Rich are playing this game until they do something they can't.
Oh,
and so
right, yeah.
From a story perspective, and this is one of the things I'd love to get your insight on before we kind of talk about like our expectations for the live letter next week, is that when it comes to what we see in terms of just like streaming and content, the patch day and the story content and expansion story content, like that's super protected. I'm curious to see what happens with all of these new communities that have come on board. If that experience continues through Endwalker, or if all of a sudden everybody's like, I'm having this great growth, like Pyromancer making the full shift over to 14. Honestly, like he's playing through, just got into Heavensward himself. Like it's really exciting to see his journey. But if he gets caught up,
he's very thorough. Like the word thorough has come up so many times with these WoW creators. Have you gotten to watch one of Pyro's streams?
Yes, I have.
Oh, he's taking notes.
Well, he's a lore guy.
Like there's gonna be a test at the end.
He's a lore guy.
I'm
he's
expecting big things.
But
awesome.
What do you expect in terms of like when Endwalker drops? Like, are we going to see like what we typically see, like lots of numbers just suppressed because people are trying to protect the story and the spoilers? What do you think, Meoni?
No, I don't think it'll be suppressed at all. I think we're going to get an overwhelming amount of people streaming that content. If that's what you mean by that question,
streaming and also watching the stream, because my concern is for the person who's like, hey, I'm full time 14 support. Like Pyro is getting like 2,000 people watching him on his streams, and all of a sudden like Endwalker drops, and if it's like down to like, oh, here's a couple hundred, and he's like, what happened? Like, I don't know. I don't know if they're ready for that, and I don't know if it will drop. Because WoW's community, in my opinion, it's been trained up a little bit differently And Scott Zone himself even reflected on that. But I'll let you have the floor.
I think it's going to be different than before with a launch of an expansion, as you say, because you've got these different communities. I think it's going to be overwhelmingly, it'll just change the landscape forever. It's already changed, I think. Like Final Fantasy XIV content creation and streaming is on a whole different level than it was a few months ago in a massive way. I mean, I'm surely you've seen it in your analytics in terms of video views like I have and stream views as well. It's a much bigger thing. I don't think there will really be that many people tuning out of someone when they're doing the Endwalker storyline. I think there'll be more people overall. I think the idea of shying away because of spoilers, it's going to be impossible to avoid the spoilers. Honestly,
it's going to be interesting because even we had Lucron on the podcast last week, and he literally is like, I don't engage with anybody in the 14 community except for us, apparently. So we got some kind of magic pass there. But he's been living on this island completely like devoid of it because he saw the Stormblood or Shadowbringers trailer before as he was playing through ARR, and he's like, nope. And then that's what made him like literally like self-isolate. And so he's kind of on this island. So I'm curious to see what happens when he's finally caught up, if he gets engaged with the community.
Or it's two different games.
Yeah.
Do you think it's I mean, it feels to me like two different games. Like when I see the way Sprouts cover it as they're moving through the story, when I see what is asked of a new player, those of us that have been here, like we've been playing it as one continuous living thing, but somebody coming in late, ARR now feels very different than it did then. Heavensward now feels very like so, and Shadowbringers will soon enter that state where like somebody's going to play it straight through. They're not going to gap out from 5.0 to 5.1. They're going straight through. And so like it can almost feel like two different games. And so I think there are creators who really thrive on the Sprout process, and there are creators who really thrive on the end game. And you don't have to be good at both. There are people that are good at both, but like there is a transition to all these people that are getting caught up now and what content creation will mean to them in a more caught up Endwalker state.
I don't know, really. I suppose it could work both ways. I think that if there is a drop off at all, like a lowering of numbers, it'll only be because of those that came before. But I think it will be higher than it's ever been before of people retaining that viewership simply because of those new people coming across that really, they're either there because they want to watch their favorite creator in the in the 20,000s or whatever, or hundreds of thousands in Asmongold's case. They don't really necessarily care about the content, but the actual creator themselves and their responses to it, right? And their reactions are key on the internet, as you know.
Yes.
That's what a lot of people make their living off of, reactions.
What's going to be interesting for me is that I was telling Chris this is like, obviously hindsight's 2020. I didn't know there was really streaming wasn't a thing. Like I wasn't really filming my playthrough, but I wish I had my 1.0, my 2.0, my 3.0. Like I wish I had those playthroughs in some archive somewhere. Cause Chris actually, like we talk about reaction content, he literally just reacted to his own video from years ago. And it's so fascinating. I'm like, man,
I referenced Meoni.
Yeah.
In the video.
So I like, that's one of the things for me. Like I will be streaming and playing Endwalker, but my plan is going to be that I'm going to get Sage and Reaper staged to level 80. And then I'm going to take Reaper through it. That's kind of giving me a little bit of a gap so that if people dive in during the holiday, they'll be technically ahead of me if they do want to watch me live react to any one bit of it. But I really want to make sure that is something that's captured, at least for my own edification later. Now, we kind of got on that topic a little bit. I do want to come back to the Asmon and Rich, the migration of the WoW refugees with you before we dive into our expectations for the live letter next week. Have you seen like any kind of positive effect on like your community with more people coming in and checking out your content? What's your overall thought? Oh, it's been huge for you?
It's huge on like especially the EU side and just my little slice of the greater community as well. I've seen a lot of people come in and ask questions, and I've tried to tell people there are no stupid questions, because some people come in and be like, I'm kind of afraid, because they're in that mindset for some reason from WoW. I don't know. They just seem to be in that mindset of, if I ask a question, I'm going to get stomped on. But it's massive. It's really, really huge. People have come in and asked questions about even the simplest things, like how do I do this? And people not understanding that there's multiple ways of moving your character, that you don't have to walk backwards with S and you can change that to something else, or the legacy mode and how most of us play in legacy, because it's just so much easier for raiding, at least on keyboard and mouse. Just
You weirdos on keyboard and mouse.
Anything you can imagine, the questions have been. So it's been really nice. And I think the majority of people I've seen myself that also stream in my stream team, for example, a lot of EU based ones and some of the American ones, we try to just make it new player friendly as much as possible, so that people see that and they come in and they can ask whatever they want. But it has been huge. There's been so many new people just showing up, wanting to do anything and everything. How do I do this? What are you doing right now? How do I get this? What is that weapon? How can I get that weapon? And as a result of that, they've been looking at loads of old guides and Eureka stuff, and wow, what's Eureka? And then suddenly you've got 73 people, on that outside of peak time, and then at peak time there's 3 instances in an Emos on Chaos. It's like, wow, and I made a video, not last year, saying that Eureka needed a Phoenix down because there was no way I could solo High Dartos. It's dead content, and now it's not dead content. So joke's on me, really. The answer was
more people.
More people. that's all it needs.
Now, what would you want to change to Eureka? Overall, what would you think would be a good change in this late in its life to help kind of make it more relevant?
We talked about this in a very old episode together, a podcast, and I'll bring that back up. And we both agreed that either a level sync system on our own or with a trust system would be the ideal way. And I still think either of those, or a mix of something like that with that tech, would be amazing. Use a trust system tech with squadrons or something.
Yes.
For
me, one of the things I've really appreciated from the Asmon and Rich and everybody kind of diving into new content, it's made me go, oh, what else would I like to do? What are these things that I really never make time for? I finished my first ever relic in Final Fantasy XIV. First ever. I've started every one and I've quit every one. The Resistance.
Nice.
Yes, dude. And I love it. Thank you. I'm actually working on it.
Sorry.
I got the White Mage one. So, and then I'm going to finish the Gunbreaker up next. And I think probably just kind of plugging away in it. And we're working on a tower climb for Heaven on High. We're on floor 80. We'll hopefully get that maybe knocked out on Friday. Then I'm looking at if I can get that clear, maybe I can get a Palace of the Dead clear. I'm just oh man. And same thing applies to Eureka. The whole reason I bring all this up is I'm also I need to start making sure that at least once a week I do my challenge log for Eureka so I can make some form of progress, because I think my biggest bucket list regret is that I haven't touched Baldesian Arsenal.
Oh yeah, that should be at the top of your list for sure. It's so incredibly easy with the wonderful groups that we have now on Discords and other communities that are running that. On Chaos, we have the late night Discord. Shout out to the late night Discord, who do pretty much weekly runs now. They were doing 2 every week, but now I think they're up to 5 or something. It's insane. They're doing this thing practically every night because of the new people that have come in and gone, if there's one thing I want from this game, it's that amazing looking elemental set, a badass weapon, and the mount. So there they go. It's Baldesian is something you need to do. I wholeheartedly support that. But make sure, if you're doing Heaven on Eye, by the way, since you said you're close to a clear, do it 4 times and you get a mount. So do it 4 times. Clear it 4 times.
All right, done and done.
That's your mission.
And then Chris has challenged me to create my one-man show and sell it to Netflix. So that's So I've got a lot that I'm trying to accomplish.
Before Endwalker.
A lot of
before Endwalker, 70 days.
I did not put that kind of test. Bo Burnham had 18 months and no kids. I've got 5 kids. I figure, multiply 18 months by 5 and boom, there's my Netflix special. Ginger on Ginger. Coming to Netflix.
Ginger of Light. There you go.
Ginger of Light.
There you
Welcome to my Netflix special. My comedy is only for a small niche audience. All right. I want to go over here to Chris real quick. We've we've really kind of, hammered the whole Asmon and RICHCOB thing here. And I think we've, there's really not much to say. Be good, be excited for the people that are coming into this game. But let's shift our focus to Endwalker. Endwalker is next. It's the big thing that we've been building up to since it was announced in February. It's been a very long gap. And next week. We kind of kick off like finally like big news that people have been dying for. Chris, what is your expectation for the 17th?
So the job action trailer, for those of us that have watched the last cycle, covered the last cycle, going back and we were watching some of the videos, that's what came up is we wanted to watch some videos from right before Shadowbringer dropped, talking about expectations, watched the video from kind of covering the media tour, and it was pre-media tour. So it was like a footage of like, okay, here's what the expectations are. The job action trailer has been requested. It was requested at the February event. Yeah, but when's the job action trailer? And in May, when's the job action trailer? Now, this is what we've been waiting for. So I think the job action trailer is a big one. I do have questions about things that may not be answered because they're saved for 6.1, 6.2. So they're off in the future. So Ishgard housing, Island Sanctuary, are we getting another deep dungeon? What are the PvP changes? I don't know that any of those will be answered this weekend. I think the big one is the job changes. The downside of announcing this at all is that while it generates a ton of hype, and I get why they do it, the reason they wait this late is because we are roughly 12 days out from everybody deciding that their job is now trash and the world is burning down. So because what's going to happen is there's going to be changes, and this is coming with the stat squish. So if they show damage numbers like flying text, people are going to be like, oh no, my job's been ruined and it's all trash. But we don't have context. Like we don't see the abilities yet. That was something that came out of the media tour, which was pre-job trailer last time. So the order's out of order, and we don't know what the content looks like, right? Like if you buff the amount of healing, people are like, oh, I'm gonna have all this spare time to DPS. Well, what if the amount of damage coming out goes up? So you just need all that extra healing. So we're missing the other piece of the puzzle. So it's exciting. I think the job changes is the big marquee item. I would love to see more explanation into what are more systematic changes. So is there going to be something like a tank stance or like a crafting and gathering overhaul? How does this work within healing? Like, what is the general idea for the battle system? I think are more the questions I would love to see this kind of address.
Meoni?
I would agree for the most part. I think that it's going to be 3 hours of talking about job changes and like a little bit of battle changes. That's my predictions. I mean, everyone's predicting that at this point. The job action trailer is going to be interesting, but I do agree it's going to be taken out of context. People will see a flashy ability with something that says 37k on it, and they'll be like, "Whoa, is that an off global? What's this?" And then people have already speculated from the last teaser trailer we had, the benchmark, sorry, where people were like, "Whoa, what's that paladin ability? What's that? And what's this? And that looks overpowered." It's like, how can you even say that's overpowered? Don't you see it as a spell?
It's shiny.
Yeah, it's shiny. It's like, well, that could be anything, couldn't it? The new red mage ability with the lightning, that looks cool. But, I don't know. There's so many things that, like you say, are going to stir the pot. And I think a lot of people are going to throw their job stone out of the pram, so to speak, and be like, I don't want to play Red Mage anymore. Or what have they done to Bard? They put songs back on it. And secretly I'll be going, yes, songs. Yes, less homogenization. Yes. That's what I would like to see, if I can say what I would like to see from these jobs.
Go for it.
Yes, I would like to see Bard have spells back that do things to finalize where Bard fits in between. Is it a damage dealer? Is it a buff person? Is it more like a dancer? Make a decision, Square Enix. Either give us full-on DPS with a Bard and get rid of those weird things, right? Or give us back the spells that people want, like the songs, and let them do something, and let them buff the party like dancer, and then make them side by side. Because at the minute, Bard doesn't really fit in. It doesn't fit in. Machinist is always taken over Bard, from what I can see, for the most part, at the end game at least. I don't know. There's bits and pieces I want to be answered. Warrior, for example. Okay, warriors need love in Endwalker. What happened to Warrior in Shadowbringers? I miss Stormblood Warrior, like the start of Stormblood. There are so many things I would like to see changed, but will I see any of them? Probably not. No. All we know is for a certain that Black Mage will not be changed. that's the only
Black Mage has always been just like, yep, that's Yoshi Peace main. We know it's a good bet that you're gonna have fun with that one. Now, Muna
Yeah.
in chat says Summoner and Scholar segments are gonna be huge.
Yes.
Could be, yeah.
What do you
That
think
could
about
be.
the state? Well, let's talk about Summoner Scholar because I'm curious to your Summoner thoughts of what you'd like to see, and then let's pivot that into healers. The like, what do we think is going to happen with 4 healers in this case this time? Start with Summoner Scholar. What do you think?
I think Summoner, I would like to see them do big DPS. I want to see them massively buffed. I want them to have, I would like them to have different glamours for their pet. I want to see just more focus on big numbers. I don't like the way that Summoner is kind of being diluted. That's really the only sort of opinions I have on that. But Scholar, that needs some huge love. I hate Scholar with a passion. I think it's the most homogenized piece of crap I've ever played in my life. I can't stand content with it, and it feels like every time I heal as a Scholar, I'm panicking because nothing's doing anything. Like, wait, this feels like I'm just like casting a thin bit of cellophane over the person who's been damaged rather than actually healing them. And I come from playing like White Mage as a main for the most part, and I like to see the big actual heals, and it feels still like the pets are too homogenized. I don't like the idea that Celine and Eos don't really do anything different. That needs to be changed, in my opinion.
Only one matches my glam.
I don't like the idea of going, it's personal choice. I like, well, why don't we use both and then include it in the rotation like we do with Phoenix and Bahamut? Why aren't the healers using both fairies and put them on a cooldown?
Yeah, I would love that. I think that's one of the things that when we look at the changes that happened to Summoner Scholar in Endwalker have been detrimental to me because I used to main Summoner. Like, that's what I played. And then it got to the point where it's like, wow, why am I playing this? Like, it's so much better to play Black Mage or a Red Mage. Like, if I want the res, like Red Mage is, it feels way more fun. When Summoner lost, I think, a lot of its identity, and it ended up feeling like I was just like, I spent 2 months actually building the controller guide for Summoner. I got it to where I was like, okay, this is passable. Like, this is something where, but it took 2 months because I was like, this is just not working. Like, this is not coming together. Like, there's just like, why is this one button only used after triggering this other button? Like, we just need to see some like skill evolutions that are a part of like logical input. And I was like, I would just change. Like, it was like you have Summon Bahamut, and then you have Enkindle Bahamut. Like, you can't Enkindle Bahamut unless he's summoned. Like, why is that 2 buttons?
Make it one bar. Yeah, make it one button, sorry, on your bar. Yeah, they need to, especially for people on controller as well. I think there are certain jobs in this game that are like playing a xylophone upside down.
Yeah.
They need to, if anything needs to be homogenized, it's the amount of button clutter on the screen.
I'm worried about that with, like, as we go to 90, though. Like, one of the things that we see with the early game where people, like, who don't like when we are critical, we're not negative, we're critical, in that regards. Like, critique is an important thing.
Summoning, for example. Like, I love it.
But it's like in the early game, like, I'm like, we need to bring more skills or like off the go cooldowns sooner, because when I go right now, like when I was playing ARR, it was fun. When I go to ARR content now, I'm like, gosh, I miss so much. Like, I don't know what that solution is. I just feel like I'm worried that if they take more of those skills off, that means that that gap between 1 to 50 is like,
we're getting new abilities. It means we're going to get some abilities pruned, and pruned means that somebody from a past level, right, some new player, or when you sink down, is going to have less abilities than we did it, right now, and it's not going to feel good. There are some jobs that just they lack their very essence, and they change a lot from 50 to 60 to 70 to 80. I'd love to see that addressed. As for like a warrior change, warrior feels so different than the other 3 tanks to me. It really feels separated. And so my concern with people saying that like warrior should needs to be brought more in line is I hope that's not to just further homogenize tanks. I think warrior does feel different than the other 3 to me. And I would love to see them lean further into that. Like for the gap close, for example, when I'm on inner release, shorten that cooldown so that I'm gap closing so that there's more off global. So that inner release really feels berserk. That's the early word for inner release. It feels berserk. It feels fast. And as I'm getting to, I'm finally leveling up all these jobs that I've just ignored for years. And like when you're in Dancer and you trigger that like rapid little speed, or when you're on some of the melee jobs and you trigger these, like it's Ninja, the Mudra system, there's these moments where it's like sprint, sprint, sprint. And when you're in content where you're having to dodge right as you're like sprint, sprint, sprint on your rotation, you're like, but when you get out the other side, you're like, that was so fun. Let's do that again. Don't worry, in 90 seconds or 60 seconds or whatever the, the phase is, you'll get to. And so I like that pacing. And I would say, let's get Warrior further into that, where the Fell Cleaves are the metronome and there's more stuff going on in between. In E12, like my opener, there's a reprisal going off in some of those spots, like in inner releases, there's a reprisal going out, and that makes the inner release feel even better because there's more going on because I have set mitigation falling during my inner release window.
Absolutely. Now when it comes to Summoner, we were talking about like buttons and things like that. What would you want to see? Like you talked about the glamour and being able to kind of change your pets, but would you think that this would be a logical time to separate Summoner and Scholar?
Would it be feasible though? Like from a game, like a mechanical standpoint,
it'd be hard. Those? It'd be hard, but they're doing that a lot of work on it. Like you have to sit here and, that's not something you just make a decision overnight on.
Does it need to be? That's the other question.
It feels like it already is. Like when we look at, Stormblood, like pets don't really do anything. Like the only thing that's really shared was their XP bar, and they have like one skill or something like that. And like the fairies are completely like homogenized and more. So at the end of the day, I just think if they're going to do something by introducing a new healer, that it, like what is Summoner's, what is Scholar's place? What is White Mage? What is Scholar? What is a Sage? And that's, I think, a good time to kind of bring it up. Chris, do you have a thought before we let Meoni talk?
I mean, they are moving us to having two types of healers instead of last expansion where like everybody can do everything. And that had some pros, right? We brought the skill floor way down for a lot of players so that the baseline to get into healing or tanking is in many ways lower than it's ever been, especially for like 4-man dungeon content. And when you pair it with the content, like a lot of these jobs are very, very attainable. You can do like Paladin, for example, you turn on your tank stance and you could literally just do the physical side of your abilities and not even know about how the magical side works. And you would still hold threat and you would still finish the dungeon. Is it good? No, but you'd be fine. You would get the clear. And so like they've brought a lot of that way down. And so we will see the healers this time split into two. And so I kind of like that idea. I assume in 8-mans, you're going to be bringing one of each. So it does make those 8-man comps move closer to where you're seeing people like, oh, we want 2 melees and 2 ranged, and we want a shield healer and a direct healer. And then the Summoner Scholar thing, Mr. Happy did ask a question about like Aggie Glams, and the response was effectively, why would we add Glams if we were going to change it? But he didn't say that. He was like, I'm not saying we're going to change it, but why would I update glamours for a system that's going to change? So in the context of Scholar, I think that kind of poises us for hopefully more variety. What do you think, Meoni?
I think that it's too late to split them completely at this point. I don't think we'll probably ever see that. That's just my own cynicism. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it otherwise, but I honestly don't see them spending any money on going, you know what, we're going to make that so that they're split off and they're two different quest lines and they're nothing to do with it. Nah, it's not going to happen now. In regards to your point, though, about healers, I don't know if I'm paraphrasing what you said, but you said to effectively that one will be specialized in one in the like direct healing and one will be in shielding. I don't think it will come down necessarily that hard. I think unless I wait to be corrected on this, but I don't think necessarily it's going to be as harsh as that. I don't think there will be a moment where it's like, we can't take two direct healers. I don't think the content will ever be in a situation where we can't take two shield healers. I don't think it really matters that much. I think it's blown out of proportion. I think that all they mentioned was that the general idea of the majority of where their focus is to focus more on the shields and stuff to accommodate so that you're not overlapping heals over time and you're not overlapping the amount of healing being, overhealed. When you look at I hate to say it, but when you look at the pass of a fight, there's a ton of overhealing, and it's because basically the same abilities do the same thing. but I still think there will be the ability for a Sage to go in and totally be fine solo healing everything that required the direct healing that a White Mage would be required for.
Do you
for
see
example,
more flexibility maybe coming in that, where it's like you would say, for example, that Sage and Scholar would be more on the shielding side, and where Astro and White Mage be maybe on the pure healing side, but there's flexibility built into that because like
it's a lean, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's more of a lean rather than a full tilt that direction,
right? Like think 60-40 or 70-30, because like even Alan brings this up saying like with the fairies, imagine one fairy kind of focusing more on shielding and then another fairy focusing in on regen. So literally like as a player you can go, oh, I'm with the White Mage, they got the regen covered, I'm going to double down on shielding. Oh, I'm with another Scholar, let's see here.
Isn't
how about you do
what they used to do with Astrologian though, with Diurnal and Nocturnal, but there's not going to be a Nocturnal anymore.
Well, we know that for a factor is like, that's what I'm saying. Like if it's where we have that flexibility, like we said,
will
60-40.
We still have Nocturnal? That is the question.
I know,
that
right?
Is the question, and how useful will it be if we still have Nocturnal and it's the same percentage? Then this is just buzzwords, and they're still perfectly viable as a direct healer. Because I don't know, it just feels like as it stands right now in the game, we are homogenized as it is. I'm like you. I don't want to see any more jobs lean too far into anything. I don't want to be specialized as, oh, well, we can't take Meoni because we've already got an Astrologian. So why won't you bring me as a White Mage?
It's a balance. So you don't want it to be 4 of the same job and it's just a swap in glam and it's a chance to get 4 of the same relic. But you don't want it to be so far the other way that you can't bring people. So I think like a lot of it will also vary in the content. Early week Savage clears saying, hey, this is the comp that we found success with because it's taking advantage of all these classes. And I'm really excited to get in a party when I see a Scholar now because it means this for my job and the way they interact, I think has value. But to say at the same time, I want to go run a normal dungeon with Meoni, it should not matter what you're on. All the healers need to be able to blast through dungeons, blast through normal mode trials and raids, any combination. You queue in with roulette, it's fine. But when you talk about content that more traditionally is a party that's pre-arranged, the party finder system, we're going to pre-scope this in because we're trying to optimize. I think that's where homogenization starts to fall short, where you do want to kind of be able to bring the class, not the player.
Yeah, people focus too much on a meta that doesn't actually represent them in the slightest, as well as a general player base. That's something that we can definitely
I saw Spia Brave be good on Black Mage, so therefore I'm going to pick Black Mage.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, did you see one of what was it? The previous content, one of the world first raiders entered with a Red Mage, and people pulled so many faces, but suddenly Red Mage was the flavor of them. It's like, no, you don't understand.
Yes.
What you don't do as they do. Like, just stop trying to copy someone else. Like, it's not applicable to you. Oh, well, we can't take this for our 4-man Satasha run because of the group comp. It's like, it doesn't apply to you. It doesn't apply to you even at Savage mode unless you're going for the world first. World first is so different than a clear of Savage content 4 weeks later. It is worlds apart. The world first is just like, what's the quickest way we can do this with the least amount of fail? That's all it comes down to.
With our player skill, right? And this exact group. And so there are ways people move and stuff that create all sorts of like sub-optimization for uptime or require some person to do something really technical with positioning that like the party finder strat adjusts heavily over the early weeks. Because it's just not the same as like what these statics are, where they're just trying to get it down once. And you see it anytime that a world first race, when you watch them clear the next week, it doesn't immediately just fall over because it's like, oh, like you also only had to clear it once. So if you got past the phase sloppy, that's good enough. Like move on.
Yeah, limit break 3 and good, you know.
It's good.
Red Mage jobs are good, and you know.
It's exciting to watch them play at that level, but it is a very different game. Than what the rest of us are playing. The tanks this expansion have been really close in damage, but technically, if you were to have a tool that could count the amount of damage you do, Gunbreaker technically comes out a little on top right now. And when I watch people doing all this stuff, people are like, how come there's no Gunbreaker in here? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Now, I do
Every
want to
single
say,
job is useful at endgame. That's the thing I just wanted to quickly put in there.
Yeah.
There's no wrong answer when you go, I want to play red mage, I want to play dancer, I want to play black mage. It doesn't matter. If you know how to play that, it doesn't matter.
right,
You'll clear the content.
the player can take the job
Yeah.
into the stratosphere, and then when you look at the meta, it ends up being like so small percentage wise that it's going to get adjusted, especially if it's something that's like, oh, there's clearly, you know, a clear disadvantage to X job, and if that
When
X
was the
job
last
happens to
time
be
that
black
happened?
mage, they've done that over the course of every expansion. We see like every patch, like
It's rare
hey,
though, isn't it? Like
well,
very small increments.
it's the most interesting content people are obsessed about, to the
Yeah.
point where they don't include job changes, adjustments, even to potencies until like when the patch goes live. They used to have them in pre-patch notes, and then everybody freaked out all weekend long. And then pre-patch notes and then patch notes, it's like, oh, they played, and people are like, oh, it actually feels better. Oh yeah, it actually, okay, it makes sense because I wasn't factoring that this off the global cooldown actually boosts its potency. You know, it's like, and it ends up being like, yeah,
They used to show it in part 2 of the live letter. That's 2 full weeks before the
Oh,
patch. We
yeah,
used to
I
get some
remember
job
that.
changes. And the
That was
world
nuts.
just and either everybody was exactly as happy as when the live letter started, or the world was on fire for 2 weeks. It never improved anything. We were always at net zero or worse. And so they're like, we're just not going to tell you about job changes in part 2 anymore. It's
Yeah.
way better.
Theory crafting without access to a game to play is impossible. Like it's just, you're just going to end up fighting amongst yourselves for the entire weekend. It's much better when you just go, this changed. It's like, oh,
all right, okay,
okay,
got it.
let's
Makes
test
sense.
this.
Let's test it. Now,
Yeah.
I do want to say thanks to Rurikon posting an epic comment saying, by the way, for all those of you watching on YouTube, did you know that if you hit the like button on this stream, your DPS of 14 increases by 20%?
Well, that's huge. That's
It's a huge
best in
boost.
slot.
It's broken. You know,
Yeah.
y'all got the black chocobo mount, and I get some kind of power to boost.
You get the echo.
I get the echo. I grant echo with every like on the YouTube stream. So
Wow.
I'll take my buff, my 14 power. All right, so we talked about healers and the expectation there. I'm very curious. Like that is something that for me as a healer, like I used to be a scholar healer. Like that was my healer. Summoner was my caster, and then I bounced around between every tank. Now, as I look at it, I go, White Mage is my healer. Will Scholar bring me back? Will Summoner bring me back?
Hopefully.
I don't know, man. Sage looks pretty freaking cool.
It does. That's one of the things as well, isn't it? Like the poster boy of any new job is always going to be over glamorized and over overdone in the first thing. We knew that. It's done deliberately to sell it. Like go and try out our 2 new jobs, but they're sometimes a little bit more flashy than the rest. But I'm starting to think that that's not going to be quite as much of an issue. And I have firm belief that Yoshi P, when he said that every job is going to have something as flashy and as identity attractive as Passage of Arms, that was enough for me. I'm paraphrasing there. He said something akin to that. I was like, well, if everyone's having something like that, then that could be enough to keep people attracted to that. Because your first impressions of something aren't necessarily if it's any good, but if it looks complete crap and this guy's going around with laser beams, shielding people and putting barriers up and nuking things with rapid fire laser beams, it's like, well, I've got a staff. I'm helping. Just like I got a cool staff.
Now,
cure.
Now with the 17th, that kind of kicks off this mad dash, 2-month road to Endwalker. What are your plans for content? Have you thought that all the way through yet? What's your do you have any in-game goals that you have yet to achieve? Like overall, like what does the next 2 months look like for you?
Stream content's easy because I've got a massive list of things that I want to complete and things I've still that I have completed so far. I mean, I've done all 17 resistance weapons. I did my second Heavensward relic, my second Realm Reborn relic. I've got plans to do another 2 Heavensward relics I want to work on. I want to get all of the Guiba mounts. I'm missing 3 of those. I still need Seat of Sacrifice, Diamond, and Emerald, because for some reason I can't get that dragon to drop in either of those 3 places. It's impossible. there's just endless amounts of things. I want to give Heaven on High a go. I've never been to the top of that, like yourself. That's a big thing to try. In terms of content, on YouTube, it's mostly me going to be covering any news and probably new player guides, because I think now is the perfect time to put down everything else and be like, actually, let's help people out. And some of the questions I get asked on the stream, I'm like, I'll make a video. It's easier. And that's usually what I do. I'm like, look, I've explained it to you, but I know that this is hard for me to explain. Let me just show you, and then I'll make a video. So that's the sort of content I've been focusing on and will be focusing on to fill the gaps. But I think whilst we had a bit of a lull in any kind of information, now is just going to be there's going to be so much, probably too much. I don't think there's going to be a single stop after this point.
What about you, Chris, man?
I mean, I had a list of things I wanted to do this expansion. That list has grown and shrunk over time. It's been a living document. At this point, like, get my armory cleared, you know, the rings and primary weapons, that'll be sorted out by another 15 slots. Is going to make a big difference there. But the other slots, just getting those really clean so that I can have leveling gear sit in there and not have to worry about it, has been kind of a goal. So getting all my melees to at least 50. So there's just a couple of poetic sets in there. Finishing out Fizz ranged. I'm almost done with casters. And so getting those leveled up is a big one. I want to clear E12S. I'd love to try an ultimate. Just so I'm going to the next expansion more well-rounded as a player. You know, going into this expansion, I have more lore knowledge than I have ever before. I have more jobs than ever before. I've done more of the content than ever before, but I would like to just be broader, because Endwalker is the finale. Like, this is our big moment. So being able to take in as much of the game as possible, like, this is that moment. And then having a baseline so that when we get to 6.1 and the game doesn't end and it's, you know, starts with a new story, I have a leaping off point in whatever storytelling devices they give us. Because, like, to build a new story, hopefully everything kind of clues us in on that. And it's not just the MSQ quests and then you're just asking questions. So hopefully, you know, Island Sanctuary is telling us a piece of that story. And if there is another Deep Dungeon update, it's telling us a piece of that story. And so hopefully each piece of content can kind of give us some insight in building this new narrative, however new it ends up being. So I think I just want to be kind of as prepared as possible. The community, like, the amount of events going on, this RICHCOB thing really reminded me, like, it doesn't even have to be from Square Enix. It's not new content. It wasn't an event they organized or even promoted, and it just kind of happened. So it's just been an exciting time to be in the community as a viewer. I've been watching more streams than ever, and on this side of things. So, like, I'm just excited. The key is just managing burnout and making sure that you're taking days off and you're taking breaks, and reminding yourself that, like, nothing's really getting deleted. So if you don't finish something up in time, like you were saying, we need to go finish Baldies and Arsenal, because Brian and I both didn't do that. Well, I'm in a Deliverum Savage group every Sunday right now. And once I get that Savage clear, I'd love to go work on Baldies and Arsenal. But if I don't get to that before Endwalker, I don't think interest in Ozma is going to just hard drop off a cliff. I think it'll come back as people get settled into Endwalker, and I'll have a chance to clear it then too.
Oh yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how waves of content and focus end up happening. And I think with more people streaming, we've always called for more content creators, helps put more things that the game does offer in front of people's faces and allows them to have those individual, like, challenges. What do you think, Meoni?
I think that the more people there are, the better just across the board, the more access we have to things is, you know. Baldesion Arsenal isn't going anywhere. It's just more of a fact that at a moment there are a lot of people who are like, actually, I wouldn't mind getting that mount before that. And because a lot of other people are setting that goal, it might be a good opportunity to hit that within the next couple of months. There'll probably be a lot less people running Baldesion Arsenal in those sorts of setup groups, because they'll be focusing on trying to do their raiding, their Savage, their whatever they plan to do. But yeah, there'll always be people up for Eureka. And as the more people, the better. Honestly, it's always growing now.
Now, Patrick's reminding me that I need to answer my own question that I asked to you guys about my goals for Endwalker. First and foremost, been working with Todd on Savage. So we got E9S down. We've gotten to Void Gate 2 on E10S. Kind of tripped me up a little bit. And honestly, I'm going to keep working with them on those Savage raids, and maybe even step in and dip a toe into Ultimate. But really the focus right now is more on like Heaven on High and that kind of content. So that's kind of where that falls. But from just a time and volume perspective, New World drops on the 28th. I've been following that game for 18 months. I'm very excited about that game. For me, it reminds me of Final Fantasy XI, but like just leveled up to a whole nother degree. And so I'm very excited to see what Amazon does with that. And I wish them the best when it comes to that. And then we got, like from a Burnout perspective, it's to get to Endwalker and be excited to play 14 and not get to Endwalker and going like, man, okay, here we go, again. But I've got everything leveled. So I'm like, honestly, I'm just ready to rock and roll. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm going to make content, going to play video games, going to hang out with the community, and stepping back, not from a content creator perspective, but stepping back into Destiny 2, playing with the community as well. So it's been really nice now that things are kind of getting back to normal and kids are sleeping through the night, that it's like, okay, yeah, I might hang out and play some video games with people. So hopefully you guys have been enjoying the streams and the content. So hopefully that answers your question, Patrick, in that regards. Now, that does bring us to the final part of the show itself. I do have a special post-show question that I've been liking, and I plan to ask Meoni if they're able to stick around. So If you guys are watching live, you get to hang out for that. If you're watching or listening to this in MP3, you got to go check out YouTube for the special pre and post show posts that go up later after the podcast are done. But Meoni, I'd like to give it to you, man. Like, floor's yours. Like, is there anything that you want to like touch on that we haven't talked about? Is there anything that you're excited about that we focus more on healers, etc.? Floor and show are yours.
Okay. Well, in terms of the live letter, I think that's just going to be the first big tip of information, but it's going to be very heavy on the amount of class changes and things like that. So people expecting answers to stuff like what is Island Sanctuary and footage of that. Unfortunately, you're not going to get that, I don't think, this time around. But you will probably get that sort of stuff answered as we go forward. We do have, as Brian said, a media tour at some point in the future that we can't obviously talk about. But I'm sure a lot of those questions will be answered then. They'll be sure to have special sites and video footage and trailers and things like that. It's about to hot off. People are about to really understand those other parts of the game. But I think for the most part, I would just like to I'd take this opportunity to thank all of the new players and all of the people who are watching, because without all of the new faces, I don't think the community would be as responsive as it has been recently and as positive. I think a lot of people have literally opened their arms and just come forward and gone, you know what, I'm going to give this game a go and I'm going to open my arms to it. And I've never seen that before. A lot of the time people try out Final Fantasy XIV, they come across from WoW in the past and they've been like, this is boring or whatever, but they've really, really opened up to this. So there's many, many reasons why they would come over from another game, but I welcome each and every one of them. I think it's not only really good, obviously, for viewership, but also hopefully people like myself and Brian and Chris here have been able to make as many of you newcomers feel welcome, and there are no stupid questions. So I'm sure you can tune into any of our streams or comment section and bring that positivity in those questions, and we'll be sure to make more content to cover that. I think new player guides are definitely something that, especially these gentlemen here, work tirelessly to obviously, they're some of the best, honestly, on here. The controller guides, all of that stuff. So, yeah, that's all I'd want to really take the floor and say. And thank to Brian and Chris for being massive members of this community that, whilst some would say are all sorts of nasty things, I value them, and I think that they are definitely people to take as inspiration, and they should be included in more things, especially arbitrary lists including giveaways in the future. Let's hope.
We'll see. It was a great thing, and I think hopefully from a learning perspective, that just with Square Enix, like the thing I always see is they do something and they learn from it, and then it gets better. Like it's with every expansion, with every fan fest, they kind of figure it out and then go from there. Chris, floor is yours, man.
I mean, it's an exciting time to be in 14. We just wrapped up the Rising event. and we are about to prepare to go into the Final Fantasy XV crossover event, which I believe Meoni has already put a guide out on. So that will launch on the 13th, and then on the 18th or 17th, depending on where you live in the world, we'll have the live letter. That'll be live translated for anybody that wants to go watch that live. That does also mean, by extension, they're going to have to say everything twice, once in Japanese and once in English. So it'll be like 4+ hours long. They'll be long. And that will get us the last of the big information, big reveal until it gets closer, with the exception of the media tour, which we really don't know much about. The way it worked last time is it was held physically. This time we know it's digital. Is they gave access to a variety of things, from outlets like Kotaku to YouTubers, just a gamut of, it was a really widespread. It didn't catch everybody, but like Reddit got a presence, and there were like some creators not traditionally known for 14 that were able to be invited to the North American one. And they were given access to the game and then given a brief window to all work on their content, and it all released on the same day. I think last time it was, like, to put it in perspective as far as how far behind we are on timeline, I think last time the embargo date was like June 29th. So just putting in perspective how different of a time of year it was for an expansion launch this time. And then that historically is about a month out from the expansion. So that's timed about right. And then we have one more live letter. They're saying in November. Live letters traditionally are about 2 weeks before content drops. And so with content dropping 19th, 23rd, of course, you're going to pre-order. That puts us beginning in November. So it's a great time to be in 14. That's just a brief rundown for anybody staying this long. That's like, well, what's next? And all of that to say would means the very next action item is to get your 4-seater car if you don't have it. So go watch Meoni's videos on the fashion guide. Do your fashion guide anytime between Friday and Tuesday reset. Do your challenge log. Go watch the guide. Have your 200,000 MGP ready, and then watch his guide on that event. It's a fun little event. I think you have to be level 50 to yes. Praetorium component, or something like that. So you have to be level 50. So if you're not, get on that, because we don't know if this is coming back around. Our advice is always
at least get to level 50. At least get to.
You need to be level 50 and have completed the Ultimate Weapon storyline. The Ultimate Weapon. Sorry, that's the name of the quest, isn't it?
So that's it. That's my big PSA for anybody that stayed this long and it's like, okay, what's my next action item?
All right,
get your car.
Get your car, and that's coming up.
Use MGP buffs as well.
Yeah, use the buffs. Meoni's channel has lots of great stuff for you to help get you over the hill. You got me my car mount, by the way. I don't remember if I ever told you that. Yeah, but it was like, oh man, I'm like 150K or whatever.
Brian a brand new car.
I got everybody gets a brand new car.
Brian got his car. He just needed like inspiration to be pushed towards it.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's really what it is. It's like, okay, I can do that. All right, guys, that comes to the end of our podcast here. We're going to be answering your questions and more, talking a little bit in the post show. But thank you so much for watching. This is Crystal Core Radio. I've been Brian, and this is the Work the Game. Brian. Anyway, we love you guys. Thanks so much for watching. We hope you have a fantastic day. We'll see you next time. Take care.